Hi guys, Dan here from Canada Abroad, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be going over one of the most popular questions that we get from people, and that is how to increase your comprehensive ranking system score. We find that people either who are already in the express entry system are constantly looking for ways to increase their score, or those who are simply looking and investigating their options of immigrating to Canada may have found that their comprehensive ranking system score is going to be too low and want to find out if there's a way for them to increase this score before putting the time and effort into creating an express entry profile. So today we're going to be going over 10 different ways that you can increase your comprehensive ranking system score. And before we go through those 10 different ways, I just want to let everyone know, if you enjoy this video and you want to win a free course on how to create your express entry profile, we are going to be giving away 10 free courses to those wanting to find out how to create their express entry profile. So this is for those individuals who have their documents or know that they're going to be getting their documents together and then just need assistance into creating that express entry profile itself. So in order to win this course, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel. And once you've watched the video, just post a comment below to let us know that you would like to win that free course. Now, we are going to be announcing the winners on June 30th, 2021. So if you want to be considered to win one of those courses, ensure that you subscribe to the channel and comment below before June 30th, 2021. Now, let's look at the 10 different ways that you can increase your comprehensive ranking system score. So we're going to start with the first one, which is probably, from what I've seen, one of the easiest or quickest ways that people can increase their score. And that is with their language test results. A lot of people don't realize that for their first official language, and some people only have the one, the French or the English, they're not bilingual in both, but whichever language is your first official language, if you got anything lower than a CLB level 9 overall, you could be losing up to 50 extra points right off the bat. And the reason for this is that the language test results, those scores don't just go towards your language test results, they also go into different skills transferability sections. So as an example, let's say that you're a federal skilled worker and you achieved 7s across the board, 7 in listening, 7 in reading, 7 in writing, 7 in speaking. You didn't actually get a CLB 9 overall because you missed that 8 in listening. So what would have happened is immediately you've lost scores on your language section. Then in skills transferability for your education, depending on if you have 1 or more degrees, you're losing 12 or 25 points. And then your work experience, depending if you have 1 to 2 years or 3 or more, you could again be losing 12 or 25 points. So when you add that together, depending on your background, it could be up to 50 points or more. So the first thing you would just want to look at is, what did I get on my language test? Is it a CLB 9 or lower? Do I realistically think that I can bring my test results up? Because we know that not everyone can get a CLB 9. It is quite difficult to get. If you're not sure exactly how your test results translate to a CLB or an NCLC level, just click the link above and it will take you to our page, which explains the different results. Because it gets a little bit confusing with the language test results. So if we talk about the IELTS and I say you need a CLB level 9, it doesn't mean you need 9 out of 9 in every section. It translates to an 8 in listening and a 7 in reading, writing, and speaking. But then if we're talking about the CELPIP, it's a 9 out of 12 in each section. So the levels that you need actually change from test to test. So go look at your language test results. If you think that you can increase them, this can be a really great option for you to bring up your comprehensive ranking system score. The next way to increase your comprehensive ranking system score is if you happen to be bilingual, so fluent or proficient in French and English, so it has to be those 2 languages, then you could do a test for your second official language to try to get some additional points. Some people don't realize how many points that second official language can add. Whatever your first official language is, as long as you are at a CLB or NCLC level 7, if you can get the second official language test, it can add all the way up to 74 additional points. So what they've done here is with the comprehensive ranking system score, you get one section, which is for your second official language proficiency. So if you're fluent in English and you can get a certain level in French, you can get anywhere from 0 up to 24 points in this section. To really make it worth it, you want to have at least an NCLC level 7 in French to add a lot of points. If you need 1 or 2, you could be at an NCLC 4 or 5 and potentially get 1 or 2 extra points. But if you want to go for the biggest amount, the 74 extra points, what would need to happen is you'd have to be able to get at least an NCLC level 7 on an approved French test. And then for an English test, you would have to get at least a CLB level 5 or higher. So here they're putting more weight on the French test, and English is sort of the second language that they're looking for. If you can get that NCLC level 7 in French, and then at least a CLB level 5 in English, you're gonna get 50 points for being bilingual. And then you can get a few extra points on the second official language for the English test being at a 5. But if you manage to get your second official language, the English, up to a high enough level, you'd get the 50 points for being bilingual, and then you can get up to 24 extra points for the second official language as well. Now, if you're French first language and you don't want to do an English test, or you know that you just cannot get a CLB level 5 on your English test, as long as you have an NCLC level 7 or higher on your French test, if you don't even go for the English test, or you attempt it and you get a CLB 4 or lower, you're still going to get 25 extra points for being bilingual, just because you're proficient in French. So these points have increased recently. They're really trying to bring in people who are fluent in French. So this is a benefit for you. The third way to increase your comprehensive ranking system score would be to increase your education. Now we understand that's not doable for everybody, but let's say that you have one qualification already that is 3 years or longer in duration, and it's been accredited by one of the approved educational credential assessing bodies, or maybe it's a Canadian qualification. If you attain a second qualification and it is from an approved school and it's recognized either because it's Canadian or you can get an educational credential assessment for it, this can increase your score up to 32 or 33 extra points, just depending if you're married or single. So this can make quite a big difference. Now with the second qualification, it's been a little bit unclear. You usually, because of the drop-down list on the express entry system, that it would need to be 1 year in duration. But recently, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada has said that it could be a 6-month course, as long as it's from an accredited institution. And if you've done your educational credential assessment, that it's recognized as a 6-month certificate from an accredited institution. As long as it's recognized, it can be used. But your first qualification has to be at least 3 years in duration. So if you have the time and the money, you can go ahead and do that second qualification to add those 32 or 33 extra points to your score. Now, the next way to increase your comprehensive ranking system score would be to increase your years of work experience. Now, this is really going to depend on your profile and which category you're applying under. As an example, if you're a federal skilled worker, depending on the number of years you have in a skilled occupation, so A O or B, your score will vary. So what they've done is with the comprehensive ranking system score, anybody who has between 1 and 2 years, they're going to be at 1 score, and those with 3 years or more are at the next level. Now, the important thing to remember with the comprehensive ranking system score is the way that they assign points based on your work experience is different than the federal skilled worker point system. So when you're calculating your points for the federal skilled worker point system, the points that you get for the number of years of work is work all in the same NOC code. For the comprehensive ranking system score, they will consider all work experience in a skilled occupation code, even if it's more than one occupation code. But at least 1 year has to have been continuous, full-time equivalent in one occupation code. So let's say that you've done 1 year of full-time paid work experience in NOC code 1111, and then you have another 3 years in 0111. For the comprehensive ranking system score, they'll use all of those years together as opposed to just the 0111. Now, this is really important because some people don't realize that, and they might just be putting everything under one NOC code and leaving off their other years of work experience. So let's say that you are proficient in English and you've got a CLB level 9 or an NCL level 9, just as an example. If you have 3 years of full-time equivalent skilled work experience in an OA or B position, and it can be, again, multiple NOC codes, you're gonna get 50 points. If you're only between 1 and 2 years, you get 25 points. So it is a big difference. Then, of course, if you have Canadian work experience, that's going to be a whole other level. You get a certain amount of points after 1 year of full-time paid work experience in Canada. Then you get additional points at years 2 and 3. And your skills transferability points will also change when you combine it with your foreign work experience. It's important to know for the comprehensive ranking system score that not all of your years of work experience have to be in the same NOC code for them to count for your foreign work experience. So you can have 1 year in one code, 1 year in another, and 1 year in another. As long as they're all O, A, or B, then it's fine. You will get points for all of them. So it's a little bit different than the federal skilled worker point system. The next way to add points to your comprehensive ranking system score is with a qualifying offer of employment. Now, what this means is, let's say that you're not already in Canada. If you are going to get a job offer from a Canadian employer, to get points right away that you can be added to your comprehensive ranking system score, that employer has to obtain a positive labor market impact assessment. Now, depending on the skill level of the position that's being offered to you, if it's a 00, so this is your senior management director, vice president levels, it's going to add 200 points to your comprehensive ranking system score. If it's anything lower than that, so 0, A, or B, it's only going to add 50 points to your comprehensive ranking system score. And again, they have to get that positive labor market impact assessment. So a written job offer or a contract, that's not enough to add points to your comprehensive ranking system score. Now, if you're going to be going over to Canada on an intercompany transfer, this is completely different. Intercompany transfers are exempt from the labor market impact assessment. So what's going to happen in this type of situation is you're not going to get points for this job offer until you've already worked in Canada for 1 year. So with this, what would happen is you'd have to go to Canada first on your work permit, work in Canada for 1 year, and then if they're going to continue to employ you and your work permit is still valid, you're going to get those points then for the valid job offer. And then depending again on your position, it'd be 50 or 200 points. And then on top of that, don't forget that you're also going to get points just for having Canadian work experience. Now, the next way to add points to your comprehensive ranking system score is with a provincial nomination. Now, what a provincial nomination is each province in Canada is given a certain amount of nominations that they can hand out every year to people that are interested and have the intention to go live and work in that specific province. They then select people based on their own provincial criteria. So what can happen is you might go into the express entry system, and then from there you would look at trying to get a provincial nomination. Now, with most of the provinces right now, you have to have a job offer to be eligible. If you don't have a job offer, there are some provinces that will look at people either based on the fact that they've graduated from a Canadian educational institution with a certain degree level. In some of those cases, though, you still need a job offer. Others might look at your comprehensive ranking system score level. They might look at your work experience, and they're targeting certain occupation codes and people with certain work experience. So each province is different. Now, let's say that you're out of Canada, you have no Canadian work experience, you have no Canadian qualifications, and you're just trying to look at the best provinces to get a provincial nomination from. Your options are mostly going to be Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. Now, the way that some of these work is you have to first already be in the express entry system with a valid express entry profile. Then, depending on your background, those provinces will consider you. As an example, Alberta, Ontario, Nova Scotia, as long as you've already entered yourself into the express entry system and you've listed that you have the intention to live and work in those provinces or all provinces of Canada, they can automatically consider you when they're doing draws. And each of them looks at different criteria. Alberta and Nova Scotia, they're basically just looking at what their economy needs at the time and then selecting people based on those occupation codes. But they don't have a set list right now of what they're specifically always going to be taking. So you have no way of knowing if you would be picked or not. Ontario does have certain lists, and they change from time to time, of different occupations that they are looking for. And these are in tech-related and non-tech related fields. If you are on that list, then what they do is they look at comprehensive ranking system scores. And they're usually picking those with a score just below what the federal government is taking. So even if you're working in a field that they're targeting, if your comprehensive ranking system score is too low, they're not going to be able to select you. With Manitoba, they're only going to allow you to put in what we call an expression of interest and let them know you want to be considered if you have some kind of connection to the province. A job offer, you've worked there, studied there before, or you have to have a family member or a friend living there that you can put down. Then if we look at Saskatchewan as an example, you would have to give them the details of your express entry profile. They rank you based on their own provincial scoring system, and only those with a high enough score in a non-excluded occupation would be considered. If we look at Prince Edward Island, it's the same. You would put in your expression of interest, and they're going to look at your score based on their own provincial government scoring system. But sometimes they're only selecting those with job offers who have already worked in the province. So these programs change time to time, and if you have never worked or studied in Canada, you're likely going to be very limited in the number of provincial programs that you might be eligible for. If you do happen to get a provincial nomination though, it's going to add 600 points to your comprehensive ranking system score. And that will make sure that your score is well above the score needed to be selected for an invitation to apply. But with a provincial nomination, you have to remember when you're signing up and signing that you would like to take that provincial nomination, you have to have the intention to live and work in that province. On top of that, some of the provinces have extra provincial government fees. This could be up to $1,500 Canadian on top of any federal fees that you might have to pay later on. The next way to earn points on your comprehensive ranking system score is if you have a sibling who is living and residing in Canada, is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, and is over the age of 18. If you have a qualifying sibling, this is going to give you 15 extra points on your comprehensive ranking system score. Now, it's important to note the sibling has to be 18 or older. So if you have a minor sibling, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to give you these extra points. They have to be living in Canada. And this is important because some people might have Canadian citizenship or permanent residence, but they're not living there at the moment. You're going to have to actually, with your application, provide proof of their current residence in Canada. If you're unable to provide that, they won't be giving you those points. Now, in some cases, if you have a step sibling who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident or half sibling, you can also get points for that as well. It's just going to depend on the relationship of your parents at that time, whether they're still married or not. Now, if you're going to be claiming points for that sibling in Canada, you just have to be aware you're going to have to provide the documents to show the biological relationship. So this is typically your unabridged birth certificate, so the birth certificate that lists both of your parents' details, and then your sibling's unabridged birth certificate. So again, showing each of their parents on their birth certificate. Then if it's a step sibling, you'd also have to show your parents' marriage certificate. So showing that each of one of their biological parents and your biological parents are now married. Then you're also going to have to provide a copy of their Canadian citizenship card or certificate, or their Canadian passport, or their permanent resident card, whichever is applicable to their current status in Canada, and then proof of their Canadian residence. So this is usually they're going to request a current utility bill with their name and Canadian address on it. If you're not able to provide the documents to show the relationship, in some cases, some people are eligible to do DNA testing if they don't have the birth certificates available to provide. And this is rare situations, but in some cases it can be done. The next way to increase your comprehensive ranking system score is mostly going to be applicable to those that are either married or common law. So if you are married or common law and you're the main applicant, sometimes we see that the spouse does not go and do an English test or get their education assessed. They think that because they're not the main applicant, they don't have to go ahead and do this. But actually, if the spouse goes and does their educational credential assessment and their language test, they can earn extra points towards the application. If they're proficient in English, they could contribute up to 20 extra points by doing either an approved English or French test. And then depending on their level of completed education, if it was done in Canada or if they get an educational credential assessment, it can add up to a maximum of 10 extra points. So spouses can add 30 extra points to your comprehensive ranking system score. So if you currently are in the system and you didn't bother to get your spouse's education assessed, or you didn't have them do a language test, you're going to want to look into these options to see if it'd be worth doing these to get extra points added to your profile. Now, the next way to increase your score is a little bit of a funny one. Let's say that you are married, but for some reason your family is not going to be accompanying you to Canada to begin with, which we see in some cases. What you can do is with your profile, you would still list that you are married or common law, but then it'll ask you, is your spouse going to be accompanying you or not? If you list them as non-accompanying, then you're going to be scored as a single applicant as opposed to a married applicant. And for some people's profile, this can actually increase their comprehensive ranking system score. Typically, we find this is only the case in applicants under 35 or in situations where maybe the spouse doesn't have any education that can contribute points, or they're not proficient enough to do an English or French test. So if you are married or common law and your family is not going to be going with you initially, you could change yourself to still married or common law, but with non-accompanying spouse. And then you'll be assessed as a single applicant, and this can increase your comprehensive ranking system score. But you have to be aware that if you're chosen like this, you have to apply for your permanent residence on your own, and you're going to have to sponsor your family later under the family class. So you can be separated for quite some time after arriving in Canada. If this is not what you want and you guys want to be arriving on the same day as a family, you want to ensure that you list your spouse as accompanying. Otherwise, like I said, your permanent residence will be listed to you only, and you will then be expected to sponsor your family later on under the family class. The next way to increase your comprehensive ranking system score is to study in Canada physically on a study permit. Now, some people will look at this as a way to increase their comprehensive ranking system score for various reasons. Number one, if you complete your education in Canada, you will get points for Canadian education. As a starting point, this will automatically be 15 or 30 extra points, depending on the number of years of your program or the level, i.e. undergrad versus master's. Then you can also get some extra points for Canadian education combined with foreign education, depending on your background. But the other reason this is very popular is once you've completed your education in Canada, as long as the institution and the program that you have studied at is eligible, you can get a postgraduate work permit for Canada. This work permit would be valid for the same duration as your studies and can be issued up to a maximum of 3 years. So let's say that you go and you study a 1-year program in Canada, you'll get your 15 extra points for study in Canada. Depending on your background, you might get extra points just for the education. And then you work in Canada for 1 full year on that postgraduate work permit. As long as your work experience is at least 30 hours per week, it's paid, and it's skill level OA or B, this will add 35 or 40 extra points depending on your personal background. So if you combine those together, you could be getting 50 plus points for studying in Canada. But obviously you're going to be paying international student fees, which can be quite expensive. So this is not always the best option for some individuals. And you'd also have to look at your own specific profile to see if studying in Canada and completing the work experience is going to be enough to increase your comprehensive ranking system score. The other reason that some people look at this is whoever is studying in Canada, the spouse, depending again on the student's program of study, duration, location, that spouse would be eligible for a spousal open work permit. So they could also get Canadian work experience. And in some cases, the spouse on the open work permit, if the employer is happy with them, they can use that job offer to potentially try and get a provincial nomination. Or depending on how long they work in Canada and their own specific profile, they might then become a main applicant through the express entry system. So it can be a little bit complicated, but this can be a method for some people to add points to their comprehensive ranking system score. But you'd also have to have the true intention to be a student because you would be expected to study full-time in Canada. Some students, however, as a full-time student, can also work 20 hours a week during normal school times and then full-time during the school holidays. And the last way to earn extra points for your comprehensive ranking system score is to get Canadian work experience. Now, this is not easy for everyone. Trying to find work from abroad can be quite difficult, and in most cases, your employer would have to do a labor market impact assessment to bring you over on a valid work permit. But once you've worked in Canada for one full year, depending on if you're single or married, you can get 35 to 40 extra points for Canadian work experience. You can also then get additional points on your skills transferability depending on your own personal background. Now, if you're from some countries, you might be eligible for what's called a working holiday or going through the International Experience Canada program. This means that it's an open work permit and it can be issued anywhere from 6 months up to 24 months for you to get Canadian work experience. Now, during non-COVID times, you wouldn't need a job offer to get this work permit. You would enter a pool of applicants based on your country of citizenship and your age. If you're chosen, then you get to submit a work permit application, and it's for an open work permit. And what an open work permit is once you get to Canada, you can work for any employer, any location, any position, and you would be allowed to move across the country. Now, if you went over on this type of work permit, you would just want to make sure that any job that you got, it was in a skill OA or B level position, and it was the equivalent of full-time work to get points towards your comprehensive ranking system score. If you do any lower skilled occupations that are at a C or D level, unfortunately, it's not going to add any points to your comprehensive ranking system score. Now, with Canadian work experience, it's a little bit different. You can work in different occupation codes as long as all of the time between each code accumulates to 1 year of full-time equivalent paid work experience. So you can jump around between NOC codes as long as there's skill level O, A, or B. So it's not like with the federal skilled worker where the one continuous year has to be in the same code before it will start counting. Now, with Canadian work experience, anything where you were self-employed will not count. So if you started your own company up in Canada and you were self-employed, that would not contribute points for Canadian work experience. So just also keep that in mind when you are going across to Canada. Even if it's on an open work permit, you want to make sure you're working for a Canadian employer to be able to get those points for the Canadian work experience.